Welcome to Tanya Outside In, chapter 24. So, chapter 23, we spoke about uniting with God. And there's two kind of levels to the unification. There's doing mitzvahs and there's learning Torah. Shalom Hanan,
Hey, Shalom Aleichem.
nice to see you. Welcome.
Thank you. I feel a little voyeuristic just checking in so infrequently, but
Guys,
I'm always in the wings.
every time you jump in is great. So,
Thank you.
chapter 24, we are discussing now what happens when a Yid does an Avera. Okay, so this is really a very, very hard chapter. Um, I don't know if it happens anymore, but I have cried at the end of this chapter. The words at the end of this chapter, if you allow their full import to seep in, should make a normal person, or at least some, it should definitely bring out some very deep emotions if you really think about it. Just put one of those going. So this is a very intense chapter. We've done all the hard work, we've done all the groundwork in chapters 20 to 22 and chapter 23. 20 to 22, we basically established that all there is God. That's it. So if you're then chapter 23, say, well, look, if all there is God, and you align yourself with Ratzon Hashem, well, then you've just synced in with reality in the most profound way imaginable. That's it. And then there's two madrigas, there's mitzvahs, there's Torah. Okay. So now what about when we don't do Ratzon Hashem? What about when we do the opposite of Ratzon Hashem, which is called Avera? Yeah, now what happens? So this is chapter 24. Okay, so hold on to your seats. Okay, we're page 58, chapter 24. V'zeh le'umazeh. This is a mirror image of that, meaning we've just spoken about doing mitzvahs and learning Torah. Now we're going to be speaking about Averas. Shalom Blazer. Chapter 24, yeah? Averas. What's with the 365 negative commandments? Deraisa or Durabanan? They are, by definition, they're neged Ritzoyne v'Chochmasa Yisborach. V'Hafchem Mamash. They're the opposite. Heim Nifradim, that word is so important. Hein nifradin miyichudoi v'achaduso yizbrach. They are parud. They are nifrad. They are separated from his achdus, which begs the question: how can there be something other than his achdus? What, where there's like another place at the side? There's like God in his oneness, and then there's like a little place on the side for separation. Obviously not. Nifradim miyichudo v'achaduso yizbrach. Betachlis apirud mamush. Betachlis apirud. Absolutely separated. So wait, everybody, what's the answer to the question then? If ein asapanui menei, yeah, there's no place free of him. Well, then what's this place of separation? It sounds like there's a second place, no? You had a question?
Hmm.
And this is the poison, the so to speak, the emotional poison of not being aligned with Ratzon Hashem is you go nowhere. You go nowhere, you become no one at no time. The experience of Avera is is falling off of the cliff of reality to where? Well, there's nowhere to fall. So you fell nowhere. Rahmanas. It's
But it's
called,
interesting because somebody who does an Avera, they could do tshuva, and then we say their Averas have chavliyot zechuyos. So I mean, it is, it's uh, neged Ratzon Hashem, but to say it's like they're goners, they're not goners, and in fact, their Averas can actually become mitzvahs. So they're actually mitzvahs.
So, well, no. An Avera is not a mitzvah. An Avera, if an Avera,
Maskim,
an
but
Avera,
it's also not off the face of the earth, I would say.
so, well, the Avera becomes a mitzvah when that feeling of nothingness causes you to reject it and to realign yourself with reality. So you have to think of it like this. Yeah, this is a very important way, a very, very important aside, is the person themselves is not time bound. The essence of who you are is a being. It's really nice, the English of being means you are. And Shalom Shmilu. Being is without time. Okay? Behavior, and there's levels in the middle, but behavior is by definition time bound. You begin doing an act, you stop doing an act. You begin saying something, you stop saying something. You begin thinking something, you stop thinking something, or distract yourself to think something else. Either way, the definition of behavior is that it's time bound, yeah? But the person themselves is beyond time. I'll explain. When a person is 95% dedicated to their wife, if they're 95% dedicated to their wife, 5% dedicated to themselves, yeah? Now, that doesn't mean that every act that they do is going to be 95% me, 95% her, 5% me at all. The acts can be completely for her. Given infinite time, yeah, that person will eventually cheat on his wife. You understand? He could bumble through 50 years, 60 years of marriage and maybe never be unfaithful. But given infinite time, he will be 5% unfaithful utterly. So now this is the whole. I don't want to get too much into this, but it's an important idea. I can't think of many more important ideas than this. Is that you are not time bound, and that's what's going to be forever. Your behavior is not only a gilui of you, it feeds back into you and changes that timeless you. So let's understand what's the you, what's the game of reality. Yeah? The game of reality is it's the game of it's between Moshe and Paroi. Paroi said Ani v'afsi oid, and Moshe said Einod milvadoi. Paroi said I exist, and Moshe said only God exists. So hopefully we're kind of somewhere over here, yeah. If
Hopefully, yeah.
if Moshe was 100% God, 0% himself, Paro was himself 0% God. Now we'll find ourselves anywhere on that continuum. Every human being will find themselves anywhere on that continuum. Hopefully, the more holy you are, the closer you are to Moshe. The less holy you are, the closer the person is to Paro. Now that isn't a time-bound thing. You're 80% Hashem, 20% you. What's that got to do with time? That's just a description of a timeless thing. You with me? That
Mostly.
express itself through time. And there will be Averas. There will be me putting myself before Hashem. So in regards to doing an Avera, yeah, that Avera is a Gilui of,
Hmm.
of me, the timeless me. And that part of me is a non-existent part of me. That part of me is delusional, is and that's the goal of avoid that's the goal of avoidance Hashem, is that part of me that right now is 80% Hashem, 20% me. We edge over the fulcrum further and further. That's our avoider. So our good acts, the fact that we're acting, let's turn it into our relationships with our wives. The fact that we're acting in a loving, kind, respectful way with our wife, that feeds back into the system and it moves our ruts on that she becomes more and more real to us. So the Avera is nothing, meaning it's nowhere, nothing, and no. It doesn't. It's non-existence. It's the opposite of God. Just as a little joke, a cute thing. Ein Sof is Aleph Samach. What's the opposite of Aleph Samach? Samach Aleph, Sitra Achra. That's just a cute little thing. But literally the Sitra Achra, that's why it's called Sitra Achra. Because it's just the other side. Why don't you call it the Sitra de Tuma or the Sitra de Ra? It's just called the other side. Why? Because its definition is that it's nothing. Just like Choshech is just a lack of light. It's not a Nivra Bifnei Atzmo. It's just an absence of light. Yeah, that's this game. So Averas actually are an experience of nothing. If you're, it's really experiencing the nothing of ourself. And hopefully that will repulse you and sicken you so much that you will exorcise that nothingness from yourself and move closer over to reality. We call that Hashem.
Okay.
About that for a long time, but that's the Rosh Prakim of the idea, I think. Okay, so Averas Hafcham Mamash, they're the opposite. Heim Nifradim Miyehuda ve'Achdusai Shmira. We're in Perek Kaf Daled, if you're interested. Just began Perek Kaf Daled at the beginning of Kaf Daled. Okay, Miyehuda ve'Achdusai is but Tachlis appeared Mamash. It's the ultimate level of separation, and we could translate the word klipa. We could translate into a lot of words, but what we're gonna Eliezer was at the I gave a shir like a vort. It's not a vort. It wasn't a vort. And Rav Shlomo Katz's shul on Shabbos before Musaf, and it's literally one of the most important things that I've ever said. I feel, and we could define klipa as aloneness. Klipa is separation, fragmentation, isolation. It's being alone. That's what klipa is, the feeling of being alone. So over here, this is what he's saying is that it's an absolute period from the Rebbeinu Shalom. Kamo sitra achva klipa nikla avodah zara. So it's called avodah zara Elohim acherim. Yeah, Loshan again, sitra achra acher is the back. The back is not important. The back is shapeless. Is recognition. It's unrecognizable. Everything's meant to be from the front. Zivug happens from the front. Yeah, that's where zivug takes place, front to front. Yeah, back to back is gullus. Machmas hestapanim shel rotzna elyoin kanal. How does that happen? It's because of hestapanim, meaning that the reason why there is avodah zara and Elohim acherim is because of hestapanim. Anybody wants to throw out what the difference between hestapanim and simsim is?
And what?
The difference in hestapanim and simsim. Let me ask you, what would a world look like that was created with just simsim and there was no hestapanim? You could, by the way, you can't have hestapanim without simsim, but you could have simsim without hestapanim, and that's I think the way I understand it. That's what Asid Lavo is. Asid Lavo is simsim without hestapanim. So what's the difference in hestapanim and simsim?
Simsim allows you to exist. Hestapanim gives you bechira.
That was said so well. I could not have said any better. But that needs unpacking. That's absolutely perfect, Gabriel.
Yeah.
I have a good rabbi.
Yeah. Well said.
So it's the difference between an aperture and a filter. Okay, if we want to take it down to photography, the aperture in the camera. Well, nowadays I don't know what it is, but there's a hole in the camera that limits the amount of light. It's a hole, yeah? Gets bigger and smaller. You have a lot of light or not a lot of light. But then you have the concept of a filter, like a veil on a window. Yeah, that doesn't limit the amount of light, that changes the quality of the light. So it's the difference between like a Venetian blind with a crack of sunlight coming through and some kind of like blue, weird, like lacy kind of veil thing over the window, yeah? One of them actually one of them actually distorts the light, one of them just limits the light. So a world of Tzimtzum, if there was just a world of Tzimtzum without any Hester Panim, we would all be robots or Malachim. We would be godly robots, meaning that we could exist, but we would have no sense of existence. We would have no sense of separation from God. Just like when the light is coming through the window, yeah, it's sunlight. It's not fluorescent light or LED or something. Yeah? It's the sunlight. So too, we could potentially be, yeah. I think I don't know if it would look like this. I don't know, but we could potentially be, but there would be no sense of independent self because you'd be so cognizant, so conscious of the Rebbeinu Shloim that you would be godly. So that wouldn't serve much of a purpose. So Hester Panim had to be added, which Gavriel just describes as giving us Bechira, and that's the point of it. By the way, Klipa and Hester Panim are the same thing. Also, Sitra Achra, it's all the same, alluding to the same thing, explaining different facets of it. It's also called Klipas Noiga, Klipas. No, that's Klipa, yeah. So the Klipa is a layer over that actually changes the quality of the light, which means not only did the light get tremendously constricted quantity wise, but after a huge downgrading of quantity, then a filter got slapped over it, and we couldn't even recognize where it's from anymore. That's Hester Panim. Why is it called Panim? Hester Panim, because that's where you recognize. That's how Hester Panim is describing the idea of Elohim Acherim. To cover the front is like seeing the back. Meaning, when you see the back, you don't know who it is. That's why Paroi is Loshen Oiref, is the Loshen back of the neck. Yeah, and a Malik is also Loshen Malak, which is also the back of the neck. There's Egla Arufa, where there's the cutting the back of the neck by a behema, which is Arufa, and then there's the cutting the back of the neck by an Oif, which is Malika. But they're connected to Amalek and to Paroi. The back you can't recognize from the back, so you don't know it's God. That's Elohim Acherim. That's Hester Panim. That's not Tzimtzum. I'll quote my Rebbe of Haas. A while ago, he told me, you know what the greatest Gilui of all time ever was? What was the greatest Gilui that there ever was of the Rebbeinu Shalom? I love this.
Har Sinai.
You think so? That's what I said when he asked me that. He said, no. The ultimate Gilui of the Rebbeinu Shalom was the initial Tzimtzum. The initial infinite Tzimtzum that moved the Rebbeinu Shalom from being Ein Sof to say or Ein Sof, yeah, which was a Tzimtzum Ein Kamo that there never has been and never will be or never could be. That was the ultimate Gilui of the Rebbeinu Shalom. Tzimtzum is always l'shem Gilui. Hester Panim is l'shem Bechira, so you can choose the Gilui. You with me? Meaning, if I want to make myself known to my child, then I can't talk like I'm talking to you. They'll just go over their head. So I want to make myself known to my child, and I have to start using, much more simple language, much more simple concepts, talking about funny stuff that they like. That's how you're Megala yourself. So Tzimtzum is Gilui. Hester Panim is concealment. Everyone's clear on that? That makes sense? Okay.
Mhm.
So that's why it's called Hester Panim. When we do an Avera, we fall into the Bechin of Hester Panim, Shavats in the Elyon Canal. Yeah, because he doesn't really want that. Like Gavriel said. And that's just as a quick side point. Why is this world is the world is analogized by Chazal, the different olamas, as different things. So the Kisei are covered. Yeah, anyone knows what world the Kisei covered represents?
Tzilus.
Yeah,
Tzilus.
close.
Bria.
Yeah, so the Kisei covered is Bria. The covered is Atzilus. It's the Kisei covered. So is Atzilus God?
No.
I mean, it's godly. It's not God. It's not it's not yes God, but it's not God. It's like the light emanating from the sun. You can't say it. We could talk about it for a long time, yeah. But the analogy is the sun, and that's the analogy of you're covered. When you walk into a room, you're covered, kind of radiates from you like the rays of the sun radiate from the sun. And if you were to put your hand between the rays of the sun and the sun, by definition, it would cut them off. So are they separate from the sun? No. Are they the sun? No. Go back and forward. That's why we have mashalim, because you can't explain it. The mashal works perfectly. Yeah, you don't need to explain it. It's like the light from the sun. Yes, it is. No, it isn't. Okay, but anyway, so it's called the Kisei covered. At least Atzilus is not called a nivra. It's not. It's definitely not something separate from God. Whereas Bria, yeah, and don't pull the Einod Milvado card on me. I'm aware of that. Yeah, but Bria is something separate from God. Bria, and by the way, Bria Yitzir is always it's one shlav. You don't need to talk about that in three parts unless you want to get granular. But generally in Kabbalah we talk about Bia and Atzilus. There's Bria Yitzir and Asir. That's creation. That's separate from God. And then Atzilus is not separate from God. Yeah. So Bria is called the Kisei HaKavod. It's just amazing how Chazal gave us these insights. Well, what's the inyan of the Kisei covered? Is the Kisei the king? No, it's something separate from the king. What part of the king interacts with the Kisei? Excuse the question. Yeah. The Achoraim of the king. The Achoraim of the king is what touches the Kisei. Why? Because Hashem doesn't really want Bria, Yetzirah, and Asir. They are a necessary evil. Why? So that we can choose him. So they're separate from him. And in the moshel that Chazal gave us, it's the backside of Hashem that touches those worlds, because you give from your back to something you don't want, that you need, like a means to an end. Yeah, when you're dealing with a means to an end, that's called dealing with your back. Yeah, you have a back-to-back relationship with your cab driver, meaning you want him to take you to so-and-so place and he wants your money. It's not about me, it's not about him. It's about what I can get from him, it's about what he can get from me. That's back-to-back. So when you don't want something for itself, your relationship to it is called a back-to-back relationship. So Hashem's relationship with Bia is a back-to-back relationship. And it's all there for you to chaza in those two words. Kisei are covered. Once you know the inyanim, yeah, once you know the inyanim, it's mind-blowing how you can chaza these inyanim, and they're so clear, so pasha. So that's where klipa begins. There is no klipa in Atzilus, Chas v'Shalom. Klipa begins. It's not. I don't know if you can call it Klipa in Bria, but it definitely begins. It begins in Bria. I don't know if it's called Klipa in Bria, but it begins in Bria. Yeah. It may be like you can even maybe say in like the lowest parts of Atzilus. I don't know. I don't know enough. I don't know. Sorry. But for sure, it's in our world, that's for sure, and that is meramis to the fact that Hashem, or it's a gilui of the fact that Hashem doesn't want this world for itself. That's what Rashi says at the beginning of Chumash. Bishul Torah, Bishul Yisrael. the point of creation is a yichud between Kudsha Baruch Hu Shchintei. Kudsha Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the Torah, is the lowest place in Atzilus, so to speak. It's the lowest place of Elokus, and Shchintei, Shechina, is the highest place of creation. Shechina is Malchus of Atzilus, yeah? Which is already contained in Malchus of Atzilus is all of Bia. But it's still Atzilustic. Nishmas Yisrael is Atzilustic. But it's the top. This is the inyan of Kudsha Baruch Hu Shchintei. This is one of, I don't know of much more important things to understand than this. That a Kodesh Baruch Hu is, so to speak, the lowest part of God. And Shechina is the highest part of creation. That was very simple the way I said that, and you could argue, but that, just to understand it for right now. A Kodesh Baruch Hu is the lowest part of God, and Shechina is the highest part of creation, and they are compatible. And that is the role of the Yid. That is the Yid and the Torah. Another word for Kudsha Baruch Hu is Torah, or Ze'ampin, that's called Torah. Another word for Knesset Yisrael is Shechina, or Yisrael, or Malchus de Atzilus. And it's the zivug between the Torah and Yisrael, which is the zivug between Kudsha Baruch Hu Shchintei, or another way of saying that is the zivug between Yisrael. It's confusing because Za is also called Yisrael. Kodesh Baruch Hu is called Yisrael, and Rochel Ameinu. That's the zivug. So whether you call it the yichud of Kudsha Baruch Hu Shchintei, of Za and Nuk, of the Vak and Malchus Atzilus, or of Torah and of Yisrael, or of Yisrael and Rochel, all of that is the same thing, and that is the connection of the lowest part of Elokus connecting with the highest part of the Bria. And that is what the Rabbeinu Sholem wants. You could call that Deir B'Tachtonim, you could call that, like, there's loads of stuff to call that. Is everyone clear on that? That's a very important idea to get clear. So
Beautiful.
when we think about being Miyached, Kudsha Baruch Hu Shchintei, we are talking about a very specific zivug, a very meyuchadika, precise zivug, which unites everything above with everything below. And that is the importance of Yisrael. So why is there everything below? So that it can be connected to everything above. That's why Hashem said, Bishvil Torah, Bishvil Yisrael. That's the Yichud Kudsha Baruch Hu Ushchintei. That's the zivug of Yisrael and Rochel, of Torah and Am Yisrael. That's why it says at the very first Rashi in Chumash, he gives you the whole picture. Bishvil Torah, Bishvil Yisrael, that they should have a zivug, yeah? They should be mizdaveg with each other, and that connects the entire thing together, and that's called Shema Hashem Hashem Echad. That is our job description. That is what Yisrael is here to do. B'ezrat Hashem, Hashem should help. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the opposite, unfortunately. V'chein, Gimel Levusha and Nefesh and Klipas Noiga. Now, the three garments of behavior of Klipas Noiga should be Yisrael, which means you're to do, speak, and think things that aren't godly. Okay? Shemachshavadi b'maisa, that our thought, speech, and action. Now, in this chapter, he's not talking about doing stuff that's permissible. He's talking about when a yid is doing things that's osa. So in this case, the levushim of the Nefesh Bahamis are not becoming bound up in Klipas Noiga. They're not becoming caught up in just playing pool and watching TV, not on Shabbos. They are getting caught up in things that are forbidden. Okay? Now, so the levushim now have gotten caught up in the 365 lo yisaseh d'oraisa d'rabbanan, v'chein mahus nefesh atzma, hamelubeshes v'levusheah, kulam yuchadim mamash b'sitra achva klipa zu hanikra avodah zara. And just like we know that the clothing, the garments dissolve to the one wearing them, to the body and clothes within them. Yeah, that's the exact point. This is what happens here. When a person is doing Averas, it's not only that his levushim become bound up in Sitra Achra, you could call that nothingness. Let's call it nothingness, because Sitra Achra is very like mystical, weird term. Yeah, get caught up in nothingness. So too, the actual mahus of the nefesh gets caught up in nothingness. And the Rebbe describes that experience in chapter 6 or 7. Wait a minute. Yeah, in chapter 7, the Rebbe describes that experience as a caught up in a eretz haisa nafshe be'eretz tzivat sal maves. Yeah, he got this from Tupac. That he gets caught up in a his body ends up going, his nefesh goes to a barren land and the shadow of death, which is called a Sitra Achra. That's nothing. The shadow of death is nothing. Death is what we're here to fix up. The shadow of death is beyond that. That's it. But that's, by the way, if a person is in tune a little bit with reality, Averas really affect him or her. It's a very important idea that we could be looking for reasons for, depression or even physical, maladies, like feel whatever it is, and it could taka be very likely is the Averas, that it's the experience that the nefesh is going through manifest in this world. That the experience is an experience of being bound up in nothingness, mamash. V'loi oid, he's going to go further. It's not enough that he said that we become bound up in nothing. V'loi oid, el shebetelim utefelim aleh, guruim pchusim menu ma'oid. You fall lower than the klipa of avodah zara. The nefesh that's doing an avera, and it means b'shas avera, the moment of the avera, yeah, it is lower than avodah zara and klipa. Why? Ki eina melubeshes beguf chumri. It's not, because klipa and sitra achra is a spiritual entity, and therefore it's completely aware of God. And this is exactly what we're going to say in a minute with Bilam from last Parsha in Yana de Yoma. What did Bilam say? He said, I can't go against God. He was plotting to go against God, but he said, I can't, because he was the embodiment of Sitra Achra. And Sitra Achra is a ruchni thing that doesn't have the chumriness of the goof to be able to deny God outright. So, like Bilam said, he'll say in a minute, yeah, because the Sitra Achra is not enclosed within a physical body, and it knows its creator. And it's not actually rebelling against God. It's just got a dirty job to do. It's employed by God. It can't go against the will of God. It's not doing its own Ratzon, it's doing the Ratzon of Hashem, not its own Ratzon, Chaz v'shalom. Kamana Bilam, like Oichel Avos Pi Hashem, in Yana de Yoma. That I'm not able to go against the Boina Shoilem. V'af shenikra voida zara, hakola Elohad Elohai. they called God, the Sitra Achra calls God the God of gods. Mean there are independent powers, but look, there's the boss. There's the boss. And at the end of the day, it goes on to him, but there are independent powers. Einam Yecholim, and that this is the I'll finish on this if I can just say, let me just say a few more words. Ve'einam Yecholim la'avor klal al ratzono yizbrach. They can't go against Ratzon Hashem. Ki yoidim umasigim shehu chayusam v'kiyumam. They are masig, and they're aware and conscious and cognizant of the fact that they are deriving their very existence from the Ribono Shel Olam. Sheyoinkim and bechinas acharayim da'acharayim sheratzon elyon baruch hu. They're cognizant of the fact that they are receiving from him, even though it's the very back of the back. Yeah, baruch hu. Hamaki faleim, and it doesn't even penetrate them; it stays around them. And shinukasam v'chiyusam shebesoicham he v'bechinas galus besoicham. This is the inyan of the Sitra Achra, that what they are yonek, the power that they do derive from the Ribono Shel Olam, ends up in a bechina of galus within them. Lachshiv, this to understand these words is so choshev. Lachshiv atzmam elahus. They think they're God, just like Paroi. Just like Paroi. This is a kafira in his achdus. You're saying, yeah, there's God and he's the boss, but I am a power unto myself. I am a law unto myself. I am, and what did we say at the beginning? Isolated, fragmented, dislocated, however you want to say it, yeah? I am, you know what the really scary word is? I am alone. The feeling of aloneness is klipa, and that's why we get married. That's the avoider of marriage, to stop being alone.
Trauma.
That is trauma, Gabriel. That is trauma. Trauma is aloneness. And whatever actually happens, all that is an image being projected onto the screen of aloneness. And if you don't feel alone, that screen doesn't exist, and trauma won't be a trauma. It might be very unpleasant, but you'll get over it. The reason why trauma is trauma, but the reason why traumatic things actually become a trauma as opposed to just an unfortunate thing that happened that you get through is dependent on the person's level of aloneness, which is primarily predicated on their parents' relationship with them. And just to bring it back to the thing, if our relationship with our children is to get something from them, no matter how elevated that thing might be, like we want nachas from them, we want to see them succeed. Not obviously you want to see your children succeed, but when that's you want to see them succeed. It's not about them succeeding. Yeah, that would be a very high level. Yeah, then the child can end up feeling abject loneness. Kol v'chomer, if you become codependent or mamash, using them for your own selfish stuyot, yeah, then they are absolutely available to trauma. Absolutely available to trauma. So we'll give a share on that in itself, because that's a very important idea. But that is definitely the Rosh Prakim, or even a bit more than that. Aval Mikol Makom Einon Koifrim Ukahashu Bahashem Legamrei, but they don't. But the Sitra Achra, although they say they are their own God, and I'm a power unto myself, I'm a law unto myself, but I'm under his jurisdiction. Yeah, they're not koifer. It's a kafir in his achdus, but they're not mamash koifer him legamrei velomer loihu, to say that he doesn't exist. That's what it means by we end up going lower than the Sitra Achra. They call him God of gods, that they receive their life force from him, and therefore they don't go against his will. Yeah, ever. They never go against his will. They're always doing what he wants, but they feel like an independent, they feel independent from him. That is kafira ba'achdusoi, not v'mahusoi. They're not saying there is no God. They're just saying that he's not one. Why is he not one? Because there's me as well. That's the suggestion. But when we do an Avera, we're saying there's no God.
Is it possible to say that the Sitra Achra itself recognizes its position relative to God, that its whole Chiyas is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but it's from our perspective that's the Simsum, that's the filter, that keeps us from seeing God as that makes us feel like there's Elokim Achirim, but from their perspective is they're just a servant under the auspices of God. But from our perspective, we look at it as separate. So they're not doing anything wrong. They're doing their shlichus perfectly.
Basically, what
when we take that as the Elokim Achirim, then that's that's the beginning of our doing something, like you said, which ends up coming out even worse because we actually think they were on our own.
One small point is it's Elohim Achirim, not Elokim Achirim. Important to say that.
Yeah. It'll take me a while.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
I haven't got it this far. It's probably going to take longer. But thank you.
I'm helping you with that. Anyway, that is important. But it is a little bit more involved. But you basically spoke this out. That's what he was saying, is that it's not that they're good, meaning that they are like Malachim. There is a difference between Sitra Achra and Malachim. Yeah, Sitra Achra are Malachim. It's not really Malachim. I don't know the distinctions. I know Rav talks about. I don't myself, but they are. But the point is that they recognize themselves as a davar bifnei atzmai. They recognize themselves as some kind of. They have a separate agenda, but they can't do it. They want to curse the Yidden, but they can't. So it's not. It's more the way I heard Rav Manis explain it one time is it's the idea of the king employs a zoina to tempt. This is the Tanya brings it. The king employs a zoina to test the morality of the prince. Yeah. So the zoina is mamash doing everything she can to tempt the prince, and she doesn't want the prince to fall. She's completely bound up with the king. That's what you were describing it as, yeah? But the way Rav Manis said it one time was that zoina called on another zoina, yeah? A second zoina. And that second zoina called a third zoina, who called a fourth zoina, a fifth zoina, a sixth zoina, and the seventh zoina didn't even know there was a king. She's just out to get the prince. That was how, whatever you might know things that makes a lot of sense to you, but I'm just trying to recount what my Rebbe said to me. So anyway, and it really does when you look into the Kisvei Ari, it gets very complex and all, loads of different bits and bobs going around. But I just wanted to pick up on this where was it on say what was I wanted to go to? I can't remember exactly what I wanted to get back to. We'll finish on this anyway. This is just such an important point of everything. Is that the feeling of separation and aloneness, yeah, is what we call in the Sfarim Elohim Achirim, Avodah Zara, Klipa, Ra, Chitzonim, whatever it is, and on our human level, on the microcosm of the human condition, is we are, especially with our children, more than anything with our spouses and with our children, is our goal is to make them not feel alone. They have to not feel alone. And every time we judge them, yeah, we make them feel alone. every time we listen to them, like really listen to them, we make them feel not alone. Every time we acknowledge them, I mean, in the deepest level of acknowledgement, yeah, like not just like, I mean, we actually acknowledge them as a being. Again, we help them not feel alone, and that's really the difference between the Benoni and the Russia. Is the Russia mamash feels alone. That's why he does Averas. The Benoni, he feels himself. The tzaddik doesn't feel himself. The Benoni feels himself, but he doesn't feel alone. He's in the presence of the Ribono Shel Olam. I'll just quickly read this to you and then we'll finish. Chapter Lamed. He's talking about you should see yourself as lower than the Kal Shebakalim. Yeah, very Mussadic chapter. You should always think of yourself as the lowliest person there is. And even the mamash, the worst guy in the shuk who's doing all kinds of bad stuff, yeah, see yourself as lower than him. And then he says, by the way, be'emes, gam mishu mechumah ma'od b'tivoi, panasayi leloich v'yoshei kranois kol yom. Even these mamash really low people who are also very passionate and violent and whatever. Ein lo shum hisnatzlus. There's no excuse al chatov. Listen to how he describes this. There's no excuse for their avera. Umikre Russia Gamor, they're called a Russia Gamor. Why? Al asher ein pachad elokim leneged einav. Because they don't have the Ribono Shel Olam in front of them. Meaning they feel alone. He's not watching. I'm by myself, so I can do what I want. That is the definition of Russia. A Russia is someone who feels alone, and they can do what he wants. And that's Klipa. And the Benoni avoida, the avoida of the Benoni is not feeling alone, is knowing that you're not alone, that you're with him. And I was just finished on this, that I said this by in a frat this Shabbos, is you can say that's Loshen his boididus. His boididus, you could say is Loshen bedovid. Base David Dalad bedovid. I mean, because bidud is like isolation and alone. Yeah, but his boidus isn't that. His boidus is meant to be yechidus with the Ribono Shel Olam. It's not you're by yourself. It's you're by yechidus with Hashem. So bidud makes you feel a little bit like it's alone. But the peirush really is bedovid. You're with the Shechina. You're with the Ribono Shel Olam. That's the point of his boidus is not being alone. It's being with God. It's the emphasis on the other side. It's a yechidus as opposed to a bedidus. That's the Indian. Anyway, we should be zeicher to mamash feel together with all the yidden, with our wives, with our children, with all the important people, and should zeicher to all good things as well to Shem. Okay.
Amen. Amen. Shkoyach. Hey, Gabriel.